There's something that y'all probably don't know about me. When it comes to playing Modern, I just want to do silly things. It's kind of why I play Mill. Not only is it an underdog strategy and an alternate way to approach the win condition, but at the time I picked it up, it really was a brew, and I've played many of such decks in my Modern past. I played my tier 1 decks of Modern Humans and Dredge and all that stuff, but I've also played mono green land destruction, a take on the red green mid-range pile that you're probably more familiar with, but one that opts for a prison element, a loop, if you will. And I wanted to go over it today, explore a bit of Modern's past, talk about why I really love this deck, and maybe ways that we could adapt it into the current metagame, because there are some powerful bits to it. So this is the deck list itself, mono green land destruction, and this came from an article by Saffron Olive here. And there's like a hyper budget version and one that was kind of piloted after the fact. So I'm not going to go over the hyper budget version specifically, although there are some sideboard pieces I want to touch on. So this one has some fetches, has some forests. You have a Nykthos in there to ramp out into big things. You'll see Hornet Queen as a classic win condition. Thrag Tusk when this card was good because Liliana the Veil was actually a relevant threat. Acidic Slime, Stampeding Sero as part of your loop. I mean, there's so many cards here, right? Like you have the Acid Moss, you have Reclaiming Vines, and one of the best cards ever, Plow Under, green 3, put 2 target lands on top of their owner's library. So forget destroying them, because destroying people's lands actually isn't that great, because they could just draw into more lands. They could draw into better threats that they can cast. Why not just destroy them after the fact? Destroy them after they redraw them. Destroy them after you knew what they were going to pick up at the beginning of their turn. Plow Under is just a great one, and Primal Command with that kind of offers a loop with like Eternal Witness. Like there's a whole bunch of great things. The one thing I want to mention out of the budget version, which I really took, like I really loved and I took from, was Mistcutter Hydra. Yo, this card is actually goated at the time, right? And has relevance now. Comes in X with haste, especially if you're getting this off with like a Nykthos. It's so good. You get this super massive, it gets around Psychic Frog, it gets around, you know, our big Delve Dragon. Like Murktide Regent stands nothing against a card that can't even be countered. Come on, this card is so good. Yes, very easily fatal pushable. I get it. I understand it's one CMC on the board, but this card is so much fun. And imagine again a time when you could actually win with Hornet Queen as a legitimate kind of win condition. So let's break down the source of this. So first and foremost, Gruul mid-range. This is a list that's more recent. So 22nd place in a Modern Challenge just at the beginning of November this year. And we almost see how this isn't really the Ponza deck that we would think of in Gruul. It's Gruul mid-range through and through, right? You have Ren and 6, you have Karn the Great Creator, you have a Karn board, a Bone Crusher Giant, Endurance, like you have a whole lot of nonsense here. And then like for Blood Moon, because Blood Moon's still good at the end of the day. It beats Urza Saga, it slows down the Eldrazi decks, and there's a fair amount of domain running around in the format where this is good as well. Not even just in the domain archetype, just domain in terms of the multicolored lands that exist in the format and the amount of decks that actually want to kind of spread themselves out. Blood Moon is pretty good. So there's a lot of good options that come out of this, but you can see how there isn't really any land destruction. Pillage is a one of. Pillage can destroy a land, but I mean, it also destroys an artifact. So that's really relevant too. And Beseiju, no, that doesn't count either. So land destruction isn't that important anymore. And we have to ask ourselves why. Why isn't something like Stone Rain good anymore in the Modern format? Is it because of the variability? I mean, again, Pillage, target artifact destroying that can't be regenerated, which is pretty relevant as well. Why isn't something like this good? Well, I mean, especially on turn 2, that's going to be the earliest that you're going to get any land destruction off. If you go Arbor Elf, turn 1, a Forest Arbor Elf, and your opponent goes Mountain and into Ragavan, and your decision is to then go land into, you know, Utopia Sprawl, untap land destruction them, like Stone Rain them. I don't know if that's a winning strategy. That Stone Rain better come with the Lightning Bolt, or else this Ragavan is about to take over the game too, because then it's going to hit you in the face. It's going to take the top card of your deck. It's going to get back a treasure there on turn 2 anyway, right? Like, I don't know if that's a winning strategy. It might be. It just doesn't seem that good. And then especially with the amount of free spells that also exist in the Modern format right now, we are circumventing what it means to be like a land deck. If like Ponza gets good again, people will just be playing Ren in 6 again, right? Like they can just, I'm not saying that's a direct answer to it, but they'll play like Ren in 6 mid-range where there's like so many lands in the deck anyway. They don't really care. They have good options against Blood Moon anyway. Like they're going to be able to stop all your stuff because the interaction that they have is free, right? They're just going to be able to stop anything and everything that you're trying to do. So instead of destroying them, let's go the mono green route where we can destroy, but we can also top deck and we can also bounce. That's a lot that you get out of the mono green decks. Now, the land destruction package comes in the Acid Moss. This card is absolutely insane when it comes to ramp. This card's actually so good. Destroy a land, search your library for a forest. So if you're splashing into another color, this can grab a shock, acidic slime, you know, artifact, enchantment, or land. So a good bit of variability. If you have like a leyline binding coming in, acidic slime can come in and grab that. Bramble crush, non-creature permanent in general, so this can grab planeswalkers. So a lot of value there. And the lock that you're looking for is something like Plow Under and Primal Command. So both the same converted mana cost. Primal Command lets you choose 2, so target player gains 7 life. Pretty relevant against aggressive strategies. Put target non-creature permanent on top of its owner's library for similar to the Plow Under. Unfortunately, it's non-creature, but you're going to be bouncing a land to put on top. Target player shuffles their graveyard into your library. So, hey, there you go. You could be playing Endurance, yeah, for Primal Command as well. And then search your library for a creature card, reveal it and put it in your hand, then shuffle. So that's really what you're going to be picking. You're going to Primal Command them. You're going to put a land on top. Then you're going to tutor for an Eternal Witness. You're going to play the Eternal Witness. You're going to bring the Primal Command back. Right? You've been ramping a bunch and that's kind of your lock. So you get the Eternal Witness, you do that. And the way you bounce the Eternal Witness turn after turn after turn is the Stampeding Wildebeest or the Stampeding Sero. So at the beginning of your upkeep, return a green creature you control to its owner's hand. Both these cards do the same thing. They both have trample. They're functional reprints of the same card. They're functionally the same card. At the beginning of your upkeep, return green creature. Beginning of upkeep, return green creature. 5/4 trample creature beast, same converted mana cost. Really weird situation in terms of the card, but you play it as a 1/of. That's your loop. So that was the fun thing, right? You ramped out, right? And this was actually at a point where in the modern metagame in 2018, where the original list came out and Saffron Olive was kind of playing it, this is what modern looked like, right? And I know a lot of you out there that love your nostalgia. I mean, yo, I was a Humans player. This was such a cool deck. Red Green Tron, Jeskai Control, Cryptic Command, Lightning Bolt, Mana Leak, Remand, Logic Knot. Like, come on. Yo, shout out to my Hollow Ones. Where are my Hollow Ones players? I was the day one Hollow One player, all right? Like I was one of those, all right? Affinity in the Mox Opal era. Like the format was different. Card Clan combo was around. There was a lot. Honestly, yo, low key, Mill was hot. Mill was hot here, all right? Like there's some good things that we could be doing at that time, but you had to have a little bit of creature removal, right? So you had to have a good way to tackle these, but there were some key lands that the Humans players played. If you wanted to stop lands, it's a good thing to be doing against Red Green Tron, a deck that really had to be playing like Dismember to stop you. Jeskai Control, definitely going to be a little bit tougher, but if you're able to enable your lock, they're just never going to have enough mana to counter multiple things in a turn. Hollow One, this is where like your sideboard really mattered. Modern was definitely a sideboard heavy format at the time, and so you would probably be playing like 4/0 mana kind of in this like interaction spells. You don't want to be playing Leyline of the Void in this deck. You want to be playing like Tormod's Crypts and stuff. Against everything else, you had options, you had ways to stop. Definitely a little light to combo, but you had options against it. Regardless, everything was there in terms of the modern format. Now, Faithless Looting was a thing, right? You're playing Hollow One, and with that, Fatal Push was also printed. So we have like some of these cards that we think of in terms of key cards throughout Modern's history. One banned, one not. Fatal Push was a Magic defining card when it was printed, and then Faithless Looting also was just an era defining card. A card that probably will never come back, albeit it could come back. I think it would definitely be one of the better cards to come back, but hey, some people like different types of Modern than I do. So whatever, it can stay on the ban list. When it comes to this modern metagame and what it's able to stop you, I mean, also have combo decks everywhere. Dredge is down here as well. But in the Dredge here, the reason it's not too big is eventually, once you looked at a new metagame, that's when this deck really was able to kind of shine. Now, this is a more built up version, right? So you have the Scavenging Oozes, which is really good kind of hate. Trinisphere was your combo hate. Tireless Tracker was some mid-range. Dungrove Elder. This was just like a very big threat against the removal heavy decks. Obstinate Baloth against Liliana. Fracturing Gust, just a house against Affinity and you know, kind of enchantments, Wormcoil Engine as a way to just ramp out and have this threat that burn just couldn't really deal with efficiently, and just other things, removal heavy stuff. So it was all there. All the options were there for different parts of the metagame, and you had a central plan. But one of the reasons I really love this deck, and one of the reasons why I was thinking back the other day as to why I wanted to kind of bring about this deck right into a video. So later that year in December, we got the printing of Guilds of Ravnica, right? So later in 2018, and this is early 2019, this is a snapshot from early 2019 where we had Dredge and Izzet Phoenix at the top of the metagame. Dredge got your Creeping Chill out of Guilds of Ravnica, and Izzet Phoenix we got out of Gilded Ravnica as well, because Arclight Phoenix was printed at the time. Arclight Phoenix, one of the best decks in the format. Of course, Dredge being around with graveyards and everything. One of the best things to happen was the fact that I discovered Raking Canopy. This card is so sick. And now let me know in the comment section down below, if you're this far in the video, let me know if you want to see like let me know if you want to see a video of like some of my favorite niche sideboard cards throughout Modern's history. I'm gonna put you onto some hot stuff, because Raking Canopy is a sick magic card. Green, and 1, whenever a creature with flying attacks you, Raking Canopy deals 4 damage to it. Folks, Arclight Phoenix, 2 toughness, Crackling Drake, which was actually a legitimate threat in these decks at some point or another. Crackling Drake also killed the Crackling Drakes. Yo, I'm telling you, Raking Canopy was hot tech. This card is so good. And it was just, I remember like I got to play this properly at like 2 FNMs, and I guess it was like TNMs, Thursday Night Magic, but yo, it did so much. Like when you got it off, you played your Graveyard Hate, then you played Raking Canopy. It was a permanent type that the Izzet Phoenix decks like just could not deal with well. Raking Canopy just did so much. It did so much. This was such a good card, and it just made it so even if they were able to remove your stuff, they couldn't even threaten you really. They had to use Thing in the Ice, and even Thing in the Ice was like pretty easily dealt with in many situations. Like you just, I don't know, like again, it just was an amazing card. I can't even kind of talk to it enough. But in the current Modern metagame, how would you adapt a deck list like this, right? Like you have, forget the One Ring, right? Like you would definitely, like, let's be honest here. If the One Ring's getting banned in December, the One Ring's getting banned December 16th. If you play this in Modern right now, this would be a One Ring deck, 100%, 4 One Rings across the main board. You'd probably put one in the sideboard, because honestly, if you needed to play a control mid-range deck that didn't have good removal and played to the weirdest sideboard plan, probably sucked against the combo, probably gets murked by Dimir Murktide, but wanted to have a chance against everything else, you'd be playing Karn the Great Creator. You need to play a Karn board, right? Like you needed to have this mid-range plan where you can tutor for the pieces that you need, because you're able to ramp out into it and also grab the One Ring. And so Saffron Olive kind of did this a while ago. This was back in 2020, so a couple of years after, revisiting the list with Karn the Great Creator, 3 Trinispheres main, and still like kind of a lot of the central like game plan. They had Castle Garenbrig as a recent addition as well, and you still played, you know, you had Veil of Summer as well, which was a relatively recent addition, Liquid Metal Coating, like all the good stuff that you'd be expecting out of a deck list like this. So I think this would be the natural evolution of it. I think a deck list like this becomes a lot worse without access to something like a One Ring, but maybe if the rest of the format doesn't have access to the One Ring and it's just like Karn the Great Creator, then maybe it's fine as well. So I'm not actually sure how to properly build this out. I'd probably like kind of meme this out and see if this deck list is worth it. I'd probably take this template and try and look at like other green staples and other good cards, but really like the options haven't evolved too far. Right, you're still playing a lot of the same things right now. Like you could switch out Obstinate Baloth, like you could do other things, like yeah, maybe the Beast Within is good. Hornet Queen is like kind of a joke, like it's probably not that great. It could be though. Acidic Slime, Eternal Witness, you're playing Noble Hierarchs here, like maybe you could use the Hierarchs to splash into something else, because you know Utopia Sprawl gets to choose a color as well. Walking Ballista as a main board, but then you also have some sideboard options. Like it's all there, right? Like you're just playing a worse Karn deck that has a weird kind of win condition, but it's also why it was just like one of my favorite decks of all time. Like once you got the loop off with Plow Under, it was game over. Your opponent could not do anything. They could not draw out of anything, and you would just eventually win the game. And that way, if they were able to eventually draw out under it, then you could just like, now you could play the Karn the Great Creator and just sideboard into other options. You Plow Under once with an active Karn out and they don't have a good threatening board, you win the game. That Karn tutors for something like a Sundering Titan is GG, is GG. They're drawing 2 lands a turn. They're not doing nothing. They could draw like, I don't know. I don't even know what they would draw, because you would never like kind of target a fetch land with something like that. So a lot of good options that this deck has access to. Are those options good enough? Probably not for the current modern metagame, but I just wanted to spend this video looking at a deck list that I really loved, a deck that honestly just was a whole ton of fun way back when. And I mean, even in terms of budget magic, I mean, like, yo, it's 25 ticks on Moto, $233. Like, a lot of this is really just, you know, the fetch lands and the fact that the Trinisphere is like $72. Like, this deck is actually pretty sick. It's pretty budget when it comes down to it. There's a lot of cheap options in here. And the deck list is pretty sweet. So let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Today's just a short video. Just wanted to take a trip down memory lane and talk to you about, you know, instead of complaining about bans or doing all that, talk to you about one of my favorite decks in Modern's history, one that I got to pilot and one that I still have a lot of the pieces to. I kind of took them apart and put them in various EDH decks and stuff, but I still got my Stampeding Sero, and I still got my Plow Unders.